What NASA discovered in 1969 should have been impossible. A single impact made the moon ring like a colossal hollow bell. This one event points to a shocking, forbidden conclusion about our moon. Ancient civilizations knew this incredible secret for over 2,000 years. The truth of what lies inside is far stranger than you imagine. Stay until the end for the classified structures NASA tried to hide. In 1969, an impossible event unfolded on the desolate lunar surface. The crew of Apollo 12 had just finished their critical mission operations. Before leaving, they performed a maneuver that would change our perception of the moon. They sent their lunar module on a deliberate collision course with the surface. This controlled crash was designed to test seismic instruments left on the moon. But what happened next defied every known principle of our planetary science. In the moments that followed, the moon began to resonate like a colossal bell. The strange vibrations did not last for just seconds, or even for minutes. Vukenferseken emisornes kolskamenikers, mukabanis to the ibishamibison ristamososen mosampila minutes. The seismometers recorded the shocking reverberations persisting for more than 3 long hours. The signal was impossibly clear, prolonged, and different from anything recorded on Earth. NASA scientists could only watch in stunned silence as the data streamed in. A lead investigator famously said the moon reacted like a gong after impact. On Earth, seismic events are dampened almost instantly by our planet's dense core. But the moon behaved as if it were a completely hollow sphere inside. This was an outcome that appeared in absolutely no scientific textbook or model. The shocking mystery of the Apollo 12 impact only continued to deepen, because this strange lunar phenomenon was not an isolated event at all. In 1972, a meteorite slammed into the lunar surface with immense force. The seismic network, still recording, registered the massive impact from multiple sites. Once again the moon rang, with reverberations lasting for over 4 terrifying hours. 4 hours of continuous vibration from a single point of impact. The seismic waves propagated across the lunar surface with minimal attenuation, suggesting that beneath the outer crust of rock and dust, the moon's internal architecture was profoundly different from our own. NASA's own data pointed to something that should not exist. The way the seismic waves traveled through the moon suggested either the presence of massive internal cavities or a structure so alien to Earth's that any comparison was rendered meaningless. Dr. Gordon MacDonald, a leading NASA scientist analyzing this data, made a statement that continues to echo in investigative circles. He concluded that based on the seismic evidence, the moon might very well be hollow. Not just pocked with large caves, but hollow in a way that hinted at an artificial construction. Before we proceed, we must confront the problem of density, for this is where hard science intersects with an inexplicable enigma. Earth possesses a density of 5.52 grams per cubic centimeter, a figure that makes perfect sense given our planet's massive iron core. The moon, however, has a density of only 3.34 grams per cubic centimeter. For an object of its size, it is startlingly light. If the moon was born from the same primordial material as Earth, or if it was calved from our planet by a colossal impact as mainstream theory suggests, their densities should be comparable. They are not. It appears the moon is either missing its core, or it possesses a core so diminutive it defies geological logic. Consider that for a moment. Our moon, a body substantial enough to command our ocean tides, stabilize our planet's very rotation, and dominate our night sky as a massive disk, weighs far less than it should. Where did all that mass go? What lies inside? In 1970, 2 Soviet scientists, Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Sheshbakov, published an article in the magazine Sputnik that sent a tremor through the global scientific community. These were not fringe thinkers, they were respected members of the Soviet Academy of Sciences. Their paper was titled, "Is the Moon the Creation of Alien Intelligence?" In it, they presented a meticulous hypothesis grounded in the available data. They proposed that the Moon was not a natural celestial body at all, but an artificial planetoid hollowed out billions of years ago by an advanced technology and deliberately maneuvered into orbit around Earth. The paper scrutinized every known anomaly: the low density, the bizarre seismic readings, the Moon's near-perfectly circular orbit, a rarity for captured satellites, and the fact that it is tidally locked, perpetually showing the same face to Earth. While tidal locking can occur naturally, it typically takes billions of years and seems almost too perfect in the Moon's case. Vasan and Sherbakov calculated that if one were to engineer a stable, artificial satellite capable of surviving for eons, protecting an interior from cosmic radiation and meteor strikes, one would construct precisely what we observe: a thick outer hull of rock and metal, 30 to 40 kilometers deep, shielding a hollow interior. The scientific establishment largely dismissed their paper as speculation, but a problem remained. No one could definitively refute their calculations. No one could offer a complete and satisfying explanation for the seismic data. The giant impact hypothesis, which posits that the Moon formed when a Mars-sized object named Theia struck Earth 4.5 billion years ago, still fails to account for why the Moon is so light, why it resonated like a bell, or why its orbit is so mathematically pristine. Then there are the elements found on the Moon that have no right to be there. When the Apollo missions returned with samples of lunar regolith, laboratory analysis revealed something alarming. The Moon's surface contains processed metals. Not trace amounts, but significant concentrations of brass mica and unusually pure titanium. Even more troubling was the presence of uranium-236. This is a radioactive isotope that does not occur in nature. It is exclusively a byproduct of nuclear fission, created only when uranium has been artificially processed for use in reactors or weapons. How did it get on the Moon? In the Sea of Tranquility, titanium concentrations are 10 times higher than in the most titanium-rich regions on Earth. Titanium is the very metal we now use to construct spacecraft, prized for its incredible strength and heat resistance. The Moon's surface is rich in the exact material one would need to build a vessel engineered for the harshness of space. Some lunar rocks brought back by Apollo astronauts have been dated to 5.3 billion years old. A Moon planet is only 4.5 billion years old. How can the Moon be older than the world it orbits? The standard explanation involves these rocks forming elsewhere and later being captured by the Moon's gravity, a theory that relies on a chain of coincidences so improbable it strains credulity. We must also discuss what NASA discovered, but rarely publicizes. During multiple Apollo missions, instruments detected strange, localized magnetic fields. The Moon lacks a global magnetic field like Earth's, which is consistent with it having little to no iron core. Yet, there are specific areas where magnetic readings spike dramatically. These magnetic anomalies are not random. They appear in patterns. Some form straight lines stretching for hundreds of kilometers. Others create geometric shapes visible from orbit. Natural geology does not produce straight lines or perfect geometric patterns. Intelligence does. Ground-penetrating radar, beamed from both Earth and lunar orbit, has unveiled massive voids beneath the Moon's surface. We are not speaking of small caves, but empty spaces large enough to house entire cities. Some of these voids seem to be interconnected by tunnel-like structures that run for dozens of kilometers. In 2016, NASA confirmed the existence of enormous lava tubes, some 50 kilometers long and several kilometers wide. They publicly suggested these could serve as future lunar bases, offering natural protection from radiation. But here is the question no one at NASA seems keen to answer. Lava tubes are formed by flowing magma, yet the Moon has been geologically dead for billions of years. How are these structures so pristine, so geometrically regular, and showing no signs of collapse despite their immense scale? The data continues to accumulate. The anomalies multiply. And every single one points toward the same unsettling conclusion. The moon is not what we have been led to believe. The hollow moon theory is not founded on grainy photographs or anecdotal testimony. It is built on seismic data from instruments placed on the lunar surface by NASA's own astronauts. It is supported by density calculations that any physics student can verify. It is evidenced by soil samples containing impossible elements. This is not fringe science. This is hard data that mainstream astronomy struggles to adequately explain. So, if the moon is hollow or contains massive artificial structures within, the next question is unavoidable. Who built it? When? And most importantly, why? There is a moment that occurs on average every 18 months that should not be possible. The moon passes directly between the Earth and the Sun, and something magical happens. A total solar eclipse. The moon obscures the Sun so perfectly that only the Sun's ethereal corona is visible, creating one of the most sublime spectacles in nature. What most people fail to realize is that this perfect alignment is a mathematical absurdity. The Sun is 400 times larger than the Moon. And by a staggering coincidence, the Sun is also exactly 400 times farther away from Earth than the Moon. The result is that from our vantage point on Earth, the Sun and Moon appear to be the exact same size in the sky. The probability of this occurring by chance is so vanishingly small that astronomers struggle to calculate it with any confidence. Throughout the entire solar system, Earth is the only planet that experiences perfect total solar eclipses. Every other moon is either too small, too large, too close, or too far to create this breathtaking phenomenon. Some scientists label it a cosmic coincidence. But when you begin to tally all the coincidences surrounding our moon, you realize that coincidence might not be the right word. Intentional design starts to seem like a more fitting explanation. Let us examine the moon's orbit, because it violates multiple principles of celestial mechanics. The moon orbits Earth in an almost perfect circle. Most natural satellites follow elliptical paths, some wildly so, swinging close to their parent planet and then arcing far away in elongated loops. This is the natural outcome of gravity when one body captures another. But the moon's orbit is so circular, with an eccentricity of only 0.0549, that it appears artificially stabilized, more circular in fact than many of the satellites we have launched into space with precise rocket adjustments. Then there is the matter of tidal locking. The moon perpetually shows us the same face. Always. Throughout the entire span of human civilization, we have only ever seen one side of it. The far side remained a complete mystery until a Soviet probe captured the first images in 1959. Tidal locking can occur naturally, but it typically requires billions of years and a very specific set of initial conditions. Only about 2% of moons in our solar system are tidally locked. Yet our moon is locked to Earth so perfectly that not 1 degree of the far side ever peeks around the edge. Here is where it becomes suspicious. Computer models suggest that for the moon to become tidally locked naturally, it would have needed to start much closer to Earth. The models work, except for one catastrophic problem. If the moon were that close, the tidal forces would have been apocalyptic. Ocean tides would have been hundreds of feet high. Earth's rotation would have been vastly different, with days lasting only 6 hours. 6 hours. There is simply no geological or fossil evidence for these conditions during the period when life was emerging. The timeline does not add up. Something is fundamentally wrong with the official story. Ancient civilizations possessed knowledge about the moon that they should not have had. Over 2,000 years ago, the Babylonians could predict eclipses with stunning accuracy. They discovered the Saros cycle, a period of 18 years, 11 days and 8 hours after which eclipses repeat in nearly identical patterns. How did they achieve this without telescopes, computers, or even accurate clocks? They would have needed to observe and record eclipses for thousands of years. And somehow they did. The Mayan civilization also tracked lunar cycles with impossible precision. Their calendars were so accurate that their calculations differ from our modern measurements by mere seconds per year. They built entire cities aligned to the positions of moonrise and moonset, and scheduled ceremonies around lunar events decades in advance. The mathematical knowledge required for this rivals our own. We are asked to believe they accomplished this by simply watching the sky, without any of the instruments we consider essential. Even stranger are the accounts from Greek historians, including Aristotle and Plutarch, who wrote of a people called the Prosellenes. The word translates literally to before the moon. These were said to be inhabitants of Arcadia, a region of Greece, who existed before the moon occupied our sky. Multiple ancient sources reference a time when Earth was moonless. Roman authors repeated these claims, describing these pre-lunar people as ancient even by Greek standards, suggesting a civilization dating back over 10,000 years. Mainstream historians dismiss these tales as mythology. But what if they are not myths? What if they are historical memories, passed down through generations, of a time when the moon was not in Earth's orbit? What if it arrived? The moon is currently receding from Earth at a rate of 3.8 centimeters per year. We know this with certainty thanks to laser reflectors placed on the lunar surface by Apollo astronauts. If you run the mathematics in reverse, you find that at some point in the distant past, the moon would have been so close to Earth that it would have been inside the Roche limit, the point at which tidal forces would have torn it to pieces. It could not have formed where standard theories claim. Scientists explain this discrepancy by suggesting the recession rate has changed over time. Perhaps the moon simply hasn't been in our orbit for as long as we assume. There is another orbital anomaly. The plane of the moon's orbit is tilted 5.1 degrees relative to Earth's equator. If the moon formed from debris after the Theia impact, it should orbit along the equatorial plane. The debris disk would have formed there, and the moon would have coalesced from that disk. But it did not. The 5-degree tilt suggests the moon originated elsewhere, that it was placed into orbit rather than forming naturally from terrestrial material. Ancient Sanskrit texts from India describe celestial mechanics with impossible sophistication. The Surya Siddhanta, written at least 1,500 years ago, calculates the moon's diameter at 2,165 miles. The actual diameter is 2,159 miles. They were off by less than 1% without telescopes. The texts also detail the moon's orbit and distance from Earth with a precision European astronomers would not achieve until the 1700s. How did they know? The moon stabilizes Earth's axial tilt at 23.5 degrees. Without it, our planet's axis would wobble chaotically, sometimes tilting 60 degrees, creating extreme seasons that would render most of the planet uninhabitable. The moon's gravitational hand keeps our climate stable, making complex life possible. Mars lacks a large moon, and its axial tilt varies wildly. Mars is dead, Earth is alive. The difference is the moon. Is that just another coincidence? A moon that just happens to be the exact right size at the exact right distance, with the exact right mass to stabilize our planet, create perfect eclipses, and govern our tides. How many coincidences must we accept before we start asking different questions? The moon's presence created the stable conditions necessary for life to evolve over billions of years. Without it, we might not exist. If the moon is artificial, then whoever placed it here may have done so specifically to allow life to flourish on this planet. We might be living on a world that was terraformed and protected by an ancient intelligence that wanted us to exist. That is a thought that should both terrify and amaze you. When Neil Armstrong set foot on the lunar surface on July 20, 1969, he was treading on ground that should not exist. The fine grey powder, the scattered rocks, the dark plains, all of it was wrong. Not subtly wrong, but fundamentally at odds with our understanding of how planetary bodies form. The Apollo astronauts collected 382 kilograms of lunar material, samples that have been studied for over 50 years. And the more they are examined, the stranger they become. The Moon's surface contains materials that have no business being there, elements that require conditions a dead, airless rock cannot provide. Start with titanium. The soil in the Sea of Tranquility, where Apollo 11 landed, has titanium concentrations 10 times higher than the richest deposits on Earth. Titanium does not naturally concentrate in such abundance. On Earth it forms through complex geological processes involving water, heat and pressure. The Moon has never had liquid water, and has been geologically inert for billions of years. So where did all this titanium come from? It is the perfect material for aerospace engineering, strong, lightweight and resistant to extreme temperatures. If you were building a massive structure to survive in space for eons, titanium would be your first choice for the outer hull. Then there are the radioactive elements, uranium-236 and neptunium-237. Let us be unequivocal. These are not natural. They are synthetic isotopes created only in nuclear reactors or during nuclear weapons testing. Finding them on the Moon is like finding a plastic bottle on a pristine beach and being told it formed from sand and water. Someone made it. NASA's official position is that these elements might have been created by cosmic ray bombardment. Might have been, possibly, perhaps. These are not the words of confident science. They are the words of a theory stretched to its breaking point. The Maria, the dark plains visible from Earth, are another paradox. They are vast basaltic plains, supposedly formed from ancient lava flows. Yet 99% of the Maria are on the near side of the Moon, the side facing us. The far side is almost entirely covered in craters and highlands. Why would volcanic activity be confined to one hemisphere? It is as if something deliberately resurfaced the near side while leaving the far side untouched. And speaking of craters, they are all remarkably shallow. The Moon has been bombarded for billions of years, creating craters hundreds of kilometers across. The energy from such impacts should have punched deep into the lunar crust, perhaps 50 or 60 kilometers down. But they did not. It is as if the meteorite struck something impenetrably hard just a few kilometers below the surface. A metallic shell, perhaps. During the Apollo missions, astronauts drilling for core samples rarely got deeper than 3 meters before hitting what they described as extremely hard material their equipment could not penetrate. There are the glass beads, millions of tiny glass spheres scattered across the surface. Glass forms when rock melts at extreme temperatures and cools rapidly. While some could be from meteor impacts, their sheer volume and uniform distribution suggest something else. Intense, widespread heat applied to the lunar surface, perhaps during its construction, or as a protective coating. Then there is the mystery of creep, an acronym for a type of lunar rock rich in potassium, rare earth elements, and phosphorus, along with uranium and thorium. Creep is highly radioactive and found primarily in one region on the near side. Why would these elements concentrate so specifically? Natural processes distribute elements more randomly, but if you were building a structure that required nuclear power, you might create fuel deposits in specific areas. Magnetic striping is another feature that defies easy explanation. The Moon has no global magnetic field, yet sensitive instruments have mapped linear patterns of magnetism stretching for hundreds of kilometers, parallel, evenly spaced, and geometrically precise. On Earth, such striping occurs where tectonic plates spread apart. The Moon has no tectonic activity, yet the striping exists, looking for all the world-like circuitry embedded beneath the surface. High-resolution photographs from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter have revealed features NASA quietly catalogs, but rarely discusses: straight lines that extend for dozens of kilometers, right-angle formations, and hexagonal crater patterns, where randomness should prevail. Near the lunar South Pole, the crater Shackleton has a floor so perfectly flat it appears machine-leveled. Even the lunar regolith, the fine dust covering everything, is peculiar. It contains metallic particles that are not oxidized, suspiciously uniform, almost as if the outer layer is slowly being ground down, revealing processed materials from beneath. Some lunar rocks contain pure iron, which should have corroded and combined with other elements over billions of years. Finding pure iron is like finding a pristine stainless steel knife in an ancient ruin. Every sample, every measurement adds another piece to a puzzle that does not fit the picture we have been given. The lunar surface does not look like the result of 4.5 billion years of natural geology. It looks like a construction site abandoned for eons, slowly accumulating damage but never quite hiding what it originally was: an engineered surface, an outer shell protecting something far more important underneath. And if the surface is this strange, what does that say about what lies beneath? In the British Museum sits a clay tablet that should not exist. It is called the planisphere, recovered from the ancient library of Nineveh. The tablet dates to around 700 BC, but the astronomical observations it records are far older. This single piece of baked clay contains calculations of celestial movements, so precise that modern astronomers needed computers to verify them. The Sumerians, with nothing but their naked eyes, somehow mapped the night sky with an accuracy that would not be matched for another 4,000 years. The tablet shows knowledge of the moon's orbital precession, the 18.6-year cycle of how its orbit tilts and shifts. To discover this, one would need to observe and record the moon's position nightly for decades, comparing observations across centuries. Yet they did it. Why were they so obsessed with the moon? Every ancient civilization tracked lunar cycles with religious devotion. The Zulu people of southern Africa have an oral tradition that describes the moon as the egg of creation, brought here by ancient ones in a time before memory. They say it arrived as a hollow sphere, placed there to watch over humanity. The Zulu word for moon, Anyanga, also means the watcher. Half a world away, the Dogon tribe of Mali possessed astronomical knowledge that baffled anthropologists. They knew of Saturn's rings and Jupiter's moons. Most incredibly, they had detailed knowledge of Sirius B, a white dwarf star completely invisible to the naked eye. When asked where this knowledge came from, they gave the same answer: the Nomo, beings who came from the sky and taught them about the stars, describing the moon as an artificial structure. It states that 200 watchers descended to Mount Hermon to observe and interact with early humanity. The original word translates to those who watch. If the moon is an observation platform, this story makes perfect sense. An advanced civilization in lunar orbit would need ground agents. The Watchers were an anthropological team, but they went rogue, transferring forbidden technology, metallurgy, weaponry, astronomy, and accelerating human development in ways that violated their protocols. The result was chaos, a world corrupted by knowledge it was not ready for, leading to a great flood. Ancient Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki in similar terms: beings from the sky who came to Earth, created humans as a labor force through genetic engineering, and ruled over them from celestial palaces. The Sumerian moon god Sin was said to live on the moon, from where he transmitted instructions to his priests on Earth. Hindu mythology describes the moon as the home of ancestral spirits who watch over humanity. Chinese mythology tells of a moon palace where the elixir of immortality is prepared. Across cultures, the theme is consistent. The moon is a base, a station, a place of observation and control. Every ancient culture tracked lunar phases with fanatical precision, scheduling their entire societies around them. Why? Unless deep in our collective memory, we remember that those who watch from above operate on schedules tied to lunar cycles. The 28-day lunar cycle matches the average human menstrual cycle. Births and emergency room admissions reportedly spike during full moons. What if the moon emits subtle fields or signals that influence biological processes on Earth? It would be a form of soft control, a way to manage a developing civilization without revealing oneself. The Watchers were not mythological. They were personnel. The moon is not a goddess. It is a base. And if that base is still operational, then we are still being watched. The question is not whether they are watching. The question is what they are waiting for. In December 1972, Apollo 17 splashed down, and humanity's journey to the moon ended. We were promised moon bases and permanent settlements. None of it happened. The official reason was budget cuts, but the money did not disappear. It was redirected to the Space Shuttle and the International Space Station. A darker explanation persists. We were told to stay away. Neil Armstrong became a recluse, troubled by something that happened during the landing. Buzz Aldrin spoke of seeing an object pacing their craft on the journey to the moon. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man on the moon, spent his later life insisting that extraterrestrials are real and that governments are covering it up. Then in 2006, NASA announced that the original high-fidelity telemetry tapes from the Apollo 11 mission had been lost, likely recorded over to save money. The most significant recordings in human history, erased to save a few dollars. The explanation is absurd. Something on those tapes was too sensitive to preserve. For decades, rumors have persisted of a secret Apollo 20 mission, a joint US-Soviet operation to investigate a massive artificial-looking object on the moon's far side. Videos allegedly from this mission surfaced in 2007, showing the interior of a derelict craft and what appeared to be a mummified humanoid pilot. NASA denies it, but the footage has never been definitively debunked. Why, after a 50-year absence, are we suddenly racing back to the moon? Every major spacefaring nation and private corporation is mobilizing. This is not about studying rocks. This is about excavating, entering, and accessing something that requires a massive on-site presence. Whatever NASA found during Apollo is still there, and now the race is on to get to it first. Let us be honest. To mainstream science, this all sounds insane. The simplest explanation, Occam's razor, is that the moon formed naturally. The prevailing theory is the giant impact hypothesis. A Mars-sized planet named Theia collided with the early Earth, and the moon coalesced from the ejected debris. This model explains the moon's composition and its lack of a large iron core. It is supported by thousands of peer-reviewed papers. The orthodox explanation for the seismic ringing is that the moon's cold, rigid interior, lacking Earth's molten layers, allows vibrations to travel farther without dampening. The low density is explained by its formation from Earth's lighter mantle material. The high titanium concentrations are a known feature of certain types of basaltic magma. The impossible radioactive isotopes can form naturally over billions of years through cosmic ray spallation. The structures in photographs are dismissed as photographic artifacts, and pareidolia, our brain's tendency to see patterns in random data. Science demands that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and blurry photos or ambiguous data do not meet that standard. And yet science has been wrong before. Continental drift was once ridiculed. The question is not whether science has explanations, but whether those explanations are stretched to accommodate uncomfortable observations that hint at something more. Perhaps the truth lies in between, a natural moon that was later modified, hollowed out and repurposed. A compromise that would explain both the natural geological features and the impossible anomalies. As something changed in 2019, NASA's old seismic monitors began detecting an increase in moonquakes. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter spotted fresh fractures appearing in the crust. Flashes of light on the surface, or transient lunar phenomena, have increased in frequency. In 2022, a radio telescope detected a brief, artificial, narrow-band signal from the moon's far side. China reported detecting magnetic field fluctuations in regular pulses. All official reports were either silenced or retracted. If the moon is a dormant ancient arc, what would trigger its reactivation? The detection of our own technological activity. We have been setting off alarms for over 60 years. Ancient prophecies from the Hopi to the Hindu Vedas describe a time when the moon awakens, signaling the end of one age and the beginning of another. What if these are not metaphors, but ancestral memories of a previous activation cycle? Reactivation could mean many things. The arc could be preparing for departure, which would be catastrophic for Earth's climate as we lose its stabilizing influence. Its inhabitants could be waking up, deciding whether to make contact or contain us as a threat. Or it could be a weapon, a doomsday device designed to neutralize any civilization on Earth that reaches a certain technological threshold. NASA and other world agencies know something. The timing of the Artemis program, the urgency, the selection of landing sites near anomalies. This is not scientific collaboration, this is preparation. We are being positioned to respond to a change. The moon is waking up and we are standing directly beneath it, unprepared for the moment the sky opens and everything we thought we knew changes forever. Our moon is not unique in its strangeness. Mars's moon Phobos has a density so low that in 1959 Soviet scientist Iosif Shklovsky calculated it must be hollow. It also hosts a 90-meter-tall, rectangular monolith. Saturn's moon Iapetus has a massive, 20-kilometer-high equatorial ridge that looks exactly like a weld seam, as if two hemispheres were fused together. Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Enceladus both have ice shells covering liquid oceans, and both are venting massive plumes of water and organic molecules into space, powered by unexplained internal heat sources. Multiple moons across the solar system show signs of artificiality, hollow interiors, geometric features, and mysterious energy sources. It starts to look less like coincidence and more like infrastructure. This leads to one answer for the Fermi paradox. Where is everybody? The zoo hypothesis. Perhaps advanced civilizations exist, but they observe developing species like us from a distance, hidden in plain sight within structures we dismiss as natural moons. We could be living inside a preserve quarantined until we reach a certain level of maturity. Every answer leads to more questions. The moon is not just a mystery, it is a gateway. And once we step through it, our history, our future, our very place in the cosmos will be rewritten. So here we are. If you have made it this far, you are willing to look at the moon and ask, what if? Let's recap the 5 most compelling pieces of evidence. The seismic data of a ringing, hollow-sounding body. The impossible density far too light for its size. The absurdly perfect orbital mechanics that give us total eclipses. The processed, industrial-grade materials found on its surface. And the geometric structures photographed by multiple space agencies. Individually they can be explained away, together they form a pattern. And patterns imply design. This means our history is a lie. We are not the first. We are being watched. And the space race is not about exploration, it is about accessing whatever is on or in the moon. You need to start paying attention. Watch what happens over the next few years. Watch where the new moon bases are built. Demand transparency. But also prepare yourself. If disclosure comes, your framework for existence will need rebuilding. We may not be the pinnacle of creation, but a junior species in a very old, very crowded neighborhood. The moon has hung in our sky for as long as we have looked up. We have written poetry to it, worshipped it, landed on it, but we have never truly seen it. It is time to look again, with open minds. With open minds. Go outside tonight, look up at that pale disk, and ask yourself, who is really watching whom? The answer is up there, 384,000 kilometers away, waiting. And if you go back and watch from the beginning now, you will notice something we mentioned in the first 5 minutes that suddenly makes terrifying sense. Tonight, when you look up at the moon, remember,